Hey, Stillwater. Welcome to episode 38 of the Still Connect podcast, the show all about our amazing town, Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is your spot to plug in, hear some great stories, and feel a little more connected to our amazing community and the people in it. I'm your host, Denver Evans. I grew up right here in Stillwater, where I run my business, Stillwater Digital Marketing. Still Connect is a local podcast where every week I share friendly chats with someone who's helping build community here in Stillwater. Now, this podcast is crowdfunded, so if you want to help share these local stories, consider becoming a subscriber on Patreon, where you can get a few perks like early access to episodes, sponsorship opportunities, and more. I would like to thank our current business subscribers, Renovate Stillwater and Film in Oklahoma, as well as our Stillwater patron, Darren Huddleston. I'm excited about today's episode. I'm here with the mayor, Will Joyce. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So give everyone kind of an overview of what it is to be mayor and also everything that you do, because we know that being a mayor isn't actually your full-time job.
That is true. And not everybody knows that. So I'm glad you brought it up. I am the mayor in Stillwater. It's an elected position, but it's a part-time, mostly volunteer position. So I'm part of the city council. There's 5 of us on the city council in Stillwater. All of us are elected at large. So everybody in the city votes for us. We don't have wards or districts or anything like that. The mayor's office is separately elected. You know, we elect somebody to be the mayor. Some cities elect councilors, and then the council selects the mayor.
Okay.
But we do elect the mayor. I was first elected to the city council in 2016, served 2 years as a city councilor, and then in 2018 ran for mayor. So was elected in 2018 and then again in 2022. So coming up on the end of my second 4-year term as mayor. And yeah, it's it's a great opportunity to help serve the people of Stillwater, place where I grew up, where I lived 37 of my 47 years or so. Yep. Just kind of trying to help figure out how to get Stillwater to kind of that next step beyond where we are in terms of growth, in terms of economic development, in terms of finding things for people to do here, and in terms of attracting more people to our community, keeping people here, young families, new professionals, retirees, whoever it is that's looking at Stillwater as an opportunity. We want to make it the most attractive place we can. So that's kind of the goal.
So kind of in more detail, what is the mayor's role and responsibility?
Yeah. So, at its core, the mayor sits on the city council and chairs the city council meetings. So I run the meetings and help set the agenda. And, outside of that, I'm just one vote on the city council. So I don't have any additional say-so about anything in town. I vote on the city council, and there's 5 of us. So however those votes come out, they come out. The only real additional sort of role that the mayor has is to be the chair of those meetings. And I get, I serve on the Stillwater Medical Center board as part of the fact that they're a public hospital, and their charter says the mayor sits on the board. Yeah. There are other sorts of positions that I have or responsibilities I have just because I'm the mayor, but they're mostly sort of, I wouldn't say ceremonial, but some of them are, and some of them are just kind of honorary kind of things. Yeah. So really, I have one vote on city council. So as a city council, our job is policy and budget, really, for the city of Stillwater, and those things go hand in hand, right? So really, the way we set policy is by what we dedicate funds to. So our job every year, we have to set a budget. Has to be a balanced budget. Has to be, it has to fund certain things that we're required to provide, public safety. We have to deal with transportation. The city of Stillwater has an electric utility and a water utility and a wastewater utility. Those are all things that we have to provide for as core functions of the city. And then there's the sort of somewhat outside the core quality of life kinds of projects, parks, library, the kinds of things that make your city the kind of place people want to live. Yeah. And so, our job is really at a high level, budget, how we spend money, where do we spend money, how do we find more money, because it's a perpetual struggle to really be able to fund the things that we need to fund at the city. And some, we pass certain ordinances that have to deal with land use and zoning and some other kinds of particular areas of the city, but that's they come up every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like there are probably a lot of misconceptions about being the mayor. Mm-hmm. You want to clear any of those up for us?
Okay, yeah. Where do we start? I think the first thing I talk to people a lot, or people ask me a lot, is about the fact that, oh, well, you run the city, or you're managing the city, or there's a lot of people who don't know that this isn't a full-time job.
Yeah.
And really, it's not a full-time job for most mayors in the state of Oklahoma and really around the country. There's a lot of cities that have adopted the same form of governance that we have. It's called council manager form of government. And so we have a city council. That city council hires a city manager who is a professional paid position, who's not elected, who's hired by a council to run the city on a day-to-day basis. Most cities in Oklahoma, among the biggest cities in Oklahoma, only Tulsa is one that actually elects its mayor to be day-to-day CEO of their city. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma City is a part-time mayor. They're a council manager form of government. And pretty much everybody else, down to some of the smallest towns, are like we are. We have a city council and a mayor who is part-time, is mm-hmm. mainly volunteer. I make $100 every time I come to a city council meeting, which is about twice a month. So it's about $2,400 total in a year to do the job. The city council makes half of that. They make $50 every time they show up at a meeting. And so, and that's the way a lot of cities work. And so a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand that my job, the city council's job, is not to manage day-to-day operations at the city. Our job is policy and oversight. We're more like the board of a corporation. Mm-hmm. You have a corporation that has a CEO, and those folks run the day-to-day operations of that corporation, and then they have a board of directors that mm-hmm. policy hires and fires the CEO, but really is not involved in the day-to-day. That's how our city is managed as well.
That's great. So if you have problems, take it to Brady, right?
I do answer a lot of emails by saying, "Hey, let me talk to the city manager," or let me connect you with the city manager, because the day-to-day stuff that's where that happens. Now, I see my job mostly as really as education and helping people understand how the city works and why the city works in a certain way, mm-hmm. and also helping people at the city understand why the community feels a certain way or why something should be important. I mean, in the policy setting part of our job, that is, as representatives of the community, the council has the responsibility of telling city management and telling the city structure, this is what the community cares about, and this is what we want to see you guys do. And so it's really almost a translation or interpretation job back and forth between the city staff and the city, sort of the day-to-day operations folks in the city and the community, and making sure those two groups understand each other.
Well, and I imagine that can be pretty tricky, kind of going back and forth between the bureaucracy and people, and
I mean, it can be. There's a lot, certainly with city government, there's a lot that people just don't understand how it works, why it works the way it works, that I personally would not know or understand how it works and why it works without being here, mm-hmm. Engaged in the day-to-day engaged in the day-to-day of what's going on, more than you or somebody whose job is not to be, involved in city politics. I mean, It's just, for most people in the community, even the ones that are paying attention for the most part, they're not hearing about, why we're having a certain struggle in community development, or what the sort of police department is dealing with on a day-to-day basis, or, the intricacies, the day-to-day stuff that mm-hmm. we certainly do hear more about as city councilors. We do have a different level of understanding, and a lot of it's weird. City finance is a mess, and there's all kinds of intricate state law, federal law that deals with how the city has to run its finances, where the money comes from, where it can be spent, where it can't be spent. It's not as simple as your home budget. It's not as simple as most private business budgets.
Yeah.
And so I have the responsibility of understanding that at some level, at a higher level, and being able to communicate back to people and say, listen, we can only spend sales tax on operations and maintenance. We can't spend We don't get property tax to spend on that. That's not how it works. And trying to help explain those systems to people is a big part of what I do.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a big realization for me, I guess, over the past couple of years, going to things like the legislative breakfasts, listening to, our local area politicians talking. But would you want to give kind of an overview of how the city gets its funding?
Sure. Yeah. What do we got? Like 3-4 hours? Yeah. Oklahoma is the only state in the United States that forces cities to rely on sales tax revenue for its operational and maintenance budgets. So everything we spend on the city on what you'd consider day-to-day expenses has to come from sales tax or other fees, or for us also can come from utility revenue. And so what we can't do is have property tax funding that would go towards any of those operation and maintenance sorts of budgets. And so we are limited in that way. And again, we're the only state that has that kind of limitation, that kind of segregation of funding. So our budget is based off how many people buy things in Stillwater. Mm-hmm. And that goes to paying police officers, paying firefighters, city staff, day-to-day operations of the city, and non-capital expenditures all have to come out of that bucket of money. Mm-hmm. That's a challenge because sales tax is kind of a black box.
It's fluid, right? It depends on...
Changes a lot month to month.
Yeah.
It changes a lot year to year.
Yeah.
And most of the influences on how much sales tax we're able to collect are outside of our control.
Right.
We can encourage businesses. We try very hard to encourage businesses to locate in Stillwater. We want sales tax generating businesses to come here. We try to provide the kind of atmosphere and the kind of environment where they want to be. But these are private businesses.
But also with more business and more infrastructure for those businesses come more needs and more
exactly.
costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. If you go build a new shopping center to attract businesses to come to that shopping center, well, what else are you going to have to build, right? Generally, you're going to have to improve streets and roads in that area. You're going to have to build utility infrastructure to that area. So you're adding to your costs, probably close to what you're actually adding to your revenues.
Right.
And then you're at the kind of mercy of whether that business succeeds or fails.
Right.
There's not much the city really has to do with that, right? Mm-hmm. The economic factors that go into whether a restaurant succeeds or not do not have a whole lot to do with the city. We don't have a lot to say about that. And so it's a revenue stream that we're reliant on, but that we have very little control over.
Yeah.
We do have access to property taxes only through what's called general obligation bonds. And so we can pass a bond issue, which has to be for a specific. It can be for more than one project, but it has to be for specific projects, right? We need to build a fire station. Right. It's going to cost us $9 million to build a fire station. We would like, instead of having to use our sales tax money to do this, we would like the city, basically what we do is we borrow money by selling bonds, and those bonds get paid back by taking a portion of a small increase in people's property taxes. And everybody who lives in Stillwater or owns property in Stillwater pays a little piece of that. That's a very complicated process in and of itself. It requires bond advisors. It requires lawyers to set everything up. It's not as easy as saying, hey, we think we need $9 million for this. Do you guys want to do that? Let's have a vote. And then if we do, then we can figure out how to spend it. We have to spend a lot of time and effort putting into the detail of that. It's a difficult process. It's a process the city has not done. We passed a bond issue in 2022 for the fire station. That was the first one since 2020. So it had been 22 years between bond issues being passed in Stillwater. In that time frame, we were talking about less than 2 mils of property tax, which in and of itself is a weird, complicated way that we calculate property tax. We talk about mils. We don't talk about percentage rates the way we talk about sales taxes, because it's based on the valuation of property, and there's different, 2 mils in Stillwater ends up being about a 2% rate on your property tax, because there's a total of about 101 mils that are collected by the school district, the county, and the county health department and Meridian and all the other groups that collect property tax collect about 100, 101 in our section in Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
In a city like Oklahoma City, their property tax rate's closer to like 120 mils.
Yeah.
And so 2 mils if property tax in Oklahoma City is less than 2% of a total, right?
Yeah.
So the numbers are weird. People don't understand it. The whole system is antiquated, confusing. It makes everybody, really, we argue about how should we pay for things, but really at a base level, we don't really even understand it.
Well, it sounds like there are so many different organizations pulling a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for us as citizens to just go, the government as a whole.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah.
When really it's like the entity of our city government. But then also like for property taxes, like you said, the schools get a part of that. Meridian gets a part of that.
And each of those entities have their own separately elected governing boards.
Right.
So there's a school board that governs the public schools. There's a school board that governs Meridian and the technology district, and they're separately elected by the public.
Right.
And they have their own,
Yeah.
needs and wants and all that, how all that works.
Yeah. And so that sales tax funding has nothing to do with the schools. Or does it?
Generally, no. The schools do not get any out of sales tax. The county can get a little bit of sales. Currently in Payne County, there's a 0.813 sales tax rate that goes to the county. And they, as the county, they could put on a ballot and pass a sales tax increase if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And if people in the county vote for it, same way we can. So there's what's interesting about it and what's different in the state of Oklahoma than in a lot of other places, although everybody does it a little bit differently. But we all individually come and ask for these little chunks of money. Other places, and I think the places that are more, I will say, well managed from a state perspective,
not Oklahoma?
Well, yeah, not that there's plenty of places that are also have their struggles, but I think the ideal system is one that puts those taxes into, a big bucket, and then each individual governing entity that needs them for part of their services or operations or whatever it is they do gets a percentage of that.
Right.
And then you have a more, it's like a home budget. I mean, I say that government finance is not like a home budget, partly because of the way we do these revenue things.
Right.
If it was like a home budget, you'd say, okay, well, I make this much money, my spouse makes this much money, we make this much money off of investments or maybe interest somewhere, or we have some other, our side hustle makes this much money.
Yeah.
We kind of all put that together, that all goes into income, and then we're able to sort of spend it off of there. The way our system is set up is extremely segregated. Well, this money goes to this purpose and that money goes to that purpose and this money. And if you go, well, wait a second, that doesn't, we didn't get enough out of that source to be able to fund this thing. Let's get some, maybe we need to pull some out of our savings, or maybe we need to pull some out of this other income stream we have.
Right.
We can't do that.
Yeah.
At least we can't do it very easily. And that's a real problem with, I think, Oklahoma municipal, county, school finance, is that it was all set up to be these very segregated systems that almost compete against each other. And so we have to work really hard, and I think we've done a really good job here in Stillwater over the last several years of cooperatively working with our school district, with our folks at Meridian Technology, with our county, to try to figure out ways to say, how do we cooperate together to promote the common good for all of us, even though our base system makes it harder for us to do that than it really should.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of strategies does the city implement in order to kind of overcome these hurdles? Is it having those conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the stuff we've done around tax incentives, when it comes to our downtown redevelopment plan, when it comes to projects like the USA Rare Earth Project, the data center project, have involved tax incentives, which are a collaborative effort, because we have to sit down with the other entities that collect portion of property taxes, and we have to talk to them about, hey, this is what we think this might do. This is how we think it will benefit the community, how it will benefit your organization. And it is much more of a collaborative, like we have representatives vote and say, we recommend this or we don't recommend it, and that sort of a thing. And so it allows us to kind of come together. And that's more project based for this specific project. We think we should collaborate, cooperate, and make this thing happen. And those have been successful by and large. Our other thing from a city perspective, I think the thing that I've recognized, that we've recognized together at the city, is that portion of property tax that we can use for capital projects needs to be utilized more. We were able to pass it for the fire station. We were able to pass a bond for the new animal control facility that is in the planning stages now. We need more projects to be funded through that capital source. And we need to then take those, those currently will result in 2 to 3 mills of property tax, maybe up to 4 mills of property tax in Stillwater over the next several years to pay for those projects. As those bonds get paid off, they roll off of the, normally they would just roll off of the tax rolls. So our 2000 project to build the new police station and renovate City Hall, which happened back in now 25 years ago, as that project got paid off, that millage rolled off of the tax roll. So our tax rate decreased a little bit. Because, very, very slightly, because we're talking about 1 or 2 mills of property tax. Yeah. What other communities do, what our school district does, what the city of Oklahoma City just did this week was periodically pass a new set of projects, right? Rather than saying, oh, we're going to let, you get a $50 decrease in your property tax this year. Why don't you just keep giving us the same $50 you've been giving us?
You just kind of
and we're going to roll it into the next project, right? And so when the schools pass a bond issue, they always make clear, we're not increasing the millage rate. Your property tax rate is not changing. It's not going up. It's just, we're just keeping that same level of giving.
Basically just a new campaign for a different project, same amount.
And rolling it back into, now in Oklahoma City, the amount changes a lot because property values go up over time consistently. And that's one of the reasons property tax is a much better funding source for lots of things, is that it is much more consistently growing than sales tax. Sales tax fluctuates, again, with very little input from us. Property taxes generally are much more stable and actually do grow over time. Oklahoma City passed their last bond issue for street projects and community capital projects was, say, 10 years ago, close to 10 years ago. And it was, the current millage in Oklahoma City is like 16 mills that they use for city projects. And I think 10 years ago, that generated $800 million in capital funding for that 10-year period, where they invested that in streets and they invested it in new fire stations or whatever it was that they were building from a capital perspective. 10 years later, this week, in fact, when they had a new bond issue just passed by 75 to 80% of the vote on every one of the questions, that same 16 mills of property tax in Oklahoma City went from $800 million to $2.7 billion. Because of the growth that they've had in property values and in property and in new facilities and new businesses and people turning land from vacant or not being used or being, just, a parking lot into a building, into a tax generating business. And so they've, that same property tax percentage more than doubled, almost tripled over that 10-year period because of the value increase they see in property. And that provides them with such a huge, I cannot overstate how much of an advantage it is for cities that do this. Oklahoma City does it. Tulsa does it. Broken Arrow does it. Yukon has millage like that. Bartlesville has millage like this. Out of the top 25 biggest cities in our state, only 3 of them don't have any. And we're right at the bottom with just a couple of millage points in our property tax pool. And so what I would love for us to do is to continue to find these projects. A swimming pool maybe next. Maybe a 5th fire station is on that list of things we might want to do. We're going to need to do. Other kinds of capital projects, road improvement projects, big street improvement projects, which cost millions of dollars each. We could put those on property tax bonds and increase our millage. Again, we're not talking huge numbers here. We're just talking about maybe getting to a 10, 15 mil kind of a base so that on that 10-year cycle, we can then start renewing these things and saying, okay, now we actually have a base of property tax generated revenue that we can invest in infrastructure, in real capital infrastructure, and not have to rely entirely on a very unreliable sales tax base to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I imagine there are a lot of factors that affect sales tax in Stillwater. Do you think that sales tax, this is just kind of a thought because of our current OSU season.
Yeah.
Do you think that poor performance in OSU athletics
yes.
significantly affects it? Does?
It absolutely affects it for sure. Now, to what extent does it affect it is a much harder question. Mm-hmm. We talk, and there's a general sense in Stillwater that our economy depends on football. I would not go so far as to say that our city economy depends on football. If there were no football games, we wouldn't necessarily have this just debilitating loss in revenue. We would certainly feel it. And we do see changes when you don't have a full packed to the gills stadium for 6 or 7 games every year. Mm-hmm. We have a hard time really quantifying the effect of it though, as well, because sales tax is reported by retailers on a month-to-month basis. And so you're going to turn in, as a retailer, you're going to turn in your whole month of October. Well, we might have had 2 home games. We might have had 3 home games. Right. We might have had 1 home game. Mm-hmm. One of those might have been great. It might have been packed. One of them might have been homecoming. One of them was a non-conference opponent that, nobody really showed up to. I can't go back and look at those numbers and figure out, did we make more money week 3 of October when it was homecoming versus how much we made week 1 of October when it was a Friday night game against Tulsa? Mm-hmm.
Legally, is the city allowed to ask OSU what were your ticket sales for this game?
Oh, sure. They have to pay taxes on ticket sales.
Right.
So tickets are taxed.
Right. But I imagine that's all for them. The numbers that are reported, it all kind of lumps.
It does lump
bucket,
together.
Right?
Although we know attendance numbers and we can see tickets on there. We can ask for sure. We can't require them just like any other retailer.
Not require,
I can't go to the Hideaway and say, how much did you report for this weekend, this weekend?
Yeah.
So we have a little bit of, there's not enough granular data for us to really make good calculations of how much more impactful is homecoming this week than a regular home game, last week, or a non-conference game versus a conference game, or whatever it is. And so I will say that, it makes a difference. I know it does. And there's certain businesses in our community for sure, places that are OSU merchandise specific, restaurants and entertainment venues close to the campus, that are certainly much more, they feel it one way or the other a whole lot more than the city might as a whole, right? Then Lowe's doesn't really probably see that big of a
Lowe's
fluctuation.
doesn't sell less wood because
now, I mean, they might. You got a lot fewer people who are going around doing home improvement projects when OSU's in town, but that's actually offsetting, right? So you actually might make less money in a football weekend than they would if there's none, and so. That level of granularity in terms of figuring exactly how it affects us, we're just not, we don't have good data for.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people were concerned last year about not having Bedlam anymore.
Yeah.
Just because having, whether it's OU or some other team, but just having less teams that are in that really easy driving distance just means less people commuting to a game or something like that.
Yeah, I think for sure at some level you don't have, I mean, Bedlam is special, right? It doesn't, the thing that makes the loss of Bedlam hard from an economic perspective is if we play Bedlam, when we used to play it on Thanksgiving weekend, right? It would be kind of the last weekend of the year. It would be on Thanksgiving. It really wouldn't matter if we had not won a game all year, if they had not won a game all year, right? If they were great and we were bad, or we were great and they were bad, it doesn't really matter. You're still getting that consistent big crowd. Lots of people show up no matter what.
Right.
And that, the loss of that kind of, well, no matter what, Bedlam will be big, right? I mean, then you switch that out and now you have a Thanksgiving weekend series, a game against Arizona State, whether they're good or we're bad or whatever, you just don't have the same draw to that game. If there's something else going on, or if we're not having a good season, or if they're terrible, and it's not going to be a competitive game, or we're both, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't rely on it like you could rely on Bedlam. And Bedlam, the t-shirt shops, there's just a whole economy itself around Bedlam in general that I think, we've seen decline without that series being played.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to kind of get to the end of the mayor talk so we can talk about fun stuff like Stillwater.
Okay.
We have a couple of listener questions. Everyone, if you want to submit questions, Patreon. So first question.
Are you going to tell me who these are submitted by?
This one is submitted by...
You don't have to.
Yeah. First question. They're all nice. They're all very nice. Actually, the first one starts with a compliment. Oh, so yeah. I truly believe Stillwater... Sorry, our listener said, I truly believe Stillwater has thrived well during your time in office. What are some accomplishments you want to be remembered for? And what are some of the things you feel that you could have done better?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think it's hard to talk about accomplishments or shortcomings or, that sort of stuff from a personal perspective, because this is such a group kind of a job, right? As we talked about the way the structure works, I'm probably more visible because that's my role, is to kind of be the spokesman a lot of times. But in terms of the actual work being done, I'm very rarely the guy who's actually doing the work, right? Our city staff, the other council members, I think I'm proud of the fact as a group, the way we've handled economic development questions, the way starting from when I was first elected as mayor in 2018, we were working on our downtown redevelopment, economic development incentive plan. That got derailed with the pandemic. We've been able to stick to it and really rebound very quickly. The economic growth we've seen, especially, just in the development or the industrial sector with USA Rare Earth, with Kingspan, with the data center project, those are primary jobs and development that is really, really tough to replace, and it's super competitive, right? All of those places are looking at lots of other potential sites to put their, their projects. And to win those kinds of projects, you have to have the community working together. You have to have a community that they look at and say, oh, this is cool. We'd like to be here. And, lots of stuff goes into that, right? OSU and their, the job potential and the training potential. Meridian Technology Center plays a huge role in it, especially when it comes to industrial sorts of work because of the training they can provide. The airport, having an airport where people can fly in and out of Stillwater on commercial flights is a huge, huge thing when you're talking about a company like Kingspan, which is based in Europe, right? Their executives would be coming to Stillwater from Europe. They're not, they don't necessarily, having to say, well, yeah, get in a car in Oklahoma City or Tulsa and drive for an hour to get over.
Right.
You don't look like the kind of potential player in a deal like that if you can't fly directly here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But I think what we've seen, the level of economic development on the sort of primary job industrial side of things is really not something we've seen in Stillwater in a long, long time. And it goes to all of those players kind of being on the same page. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the quality of life stuff we've done so far. I think we've got a long way to go there. Block 34 is certainly a huge, I think will be a shining jewel of this community for a long time to come. And to the extent we had a role to play in that from a council perspective, really our role was to say, this block is really cool. We think something awesome might be able to be done there if we could find somebody who is willing to share that vision, or who does share that vision, is willing to help support it financially, because the city couldn't fund that. Certainly not at the level that Steve Irby and Kicker and Simmons Bank and the donors that have made that happen. And our accomplishment in that has been saying, let's hold on. Let's just sort of see. Let's see if we can, let's throw a little bit of vision out there. Here's some drawings of stuff we think might be able to happen. We can't do any of this stuff, but we think it would be cool. And if we can just find the right partners to come alongside us, then we could make it happen. mean, the credit for Block 34 goes to Steve. It goes to the people who have actually paid and designed and made that thing what it is. But it's fantastic. And the city's role in that, and my role in that, and the council's role in that has been, we would like to see something maybe happen here. And you know,
well, and you know, not to sell you all short, because of course you added all of the infrastructure improvements around the block. I mean, that equipped the market.
Absolutely. But that was stuff that we said, okay, now that we've got somebody who's willing to put this money in, now it makes more sense for the city, right? We would never have done that, you know, just to try to say, well, maybe now somebody will come up, you know, I mean, but again, I mean, it's the willingness to sort of say, we will cooperate if we can find the right project. We'll absolutely want to come alongside and cooperate with it. And really just I think the long range planning and, you know, not feeling like we need to get a quick win here. Oh, we just need to get something done. Or, you know, people are saying, what's going on with this block? Why are you letting it just sit there? And I think it has taken the council some fortitude and some long-term vision and some long-term planning to look at it and go, no, we really believe something like this can happen. And we don't want to sell the town short, and we don't want to, you know, take a shortcut or just take an easy win just because we're tired of having to answer questions about it. Right. And that I think is probably I think from my standpoint, the thing that I have tried to, whether we're talking about pandemic, whether we're talking about economic development, quality of life, all that kind of stuff, the thing I've tried to stand on is long-term benefit, right? This sucks right now, or this is a difficult thing to deal with right now, or we're having to, you know, we're waiting around and nothing's really happening, or we have to make this difficult decision right now. But from a long-term view, do we think this is going to play out the way we want it to play out? And I think more often not, it has. And I think it's given, you know, from my standpoint, a really important part is there is having leadership on the council, in the city management suite, of people who are willing to say, we're going to put up with maybe some shorter term, we're going to make some harder decisions in the shorter term because we believe that they will pay off in the long term. And it's really gratifying when it does. Not that every one of them has, right? I mean, we've had plenty of things. I mean, you asked about, you know, what are some of the disappointments, right? I mean, I think when we first put together the downtown redevelopment TIF, we had a beautiful Warren Theater development that was drawn up and ready to go. I mean, it was movie theater, mixed use. It was going to be really, really cool right there on between catty corner from where Block 34 is now, right? With still the plan of, we want to leave that Block 34 block open. Maybe this will, that what we have on Block 34 would have happened with a really nice urban theater, you know, right catty corner from it. Was really excited about that project. And then the pandemic happened and movie theaters sort of went away for several years. And, you know, I'm glad that we didn't get farther into that project before the pandemic. But I mean, I think that would have been great. We're still working on a conference center kind of project, conference center hotel. Really hopeful that will happen. I'm disappointed we haven't been able to make that happen. The Boomer Lake Station project, I thought, had great potential, still great potential out there, but we haven't been able to get that one across the finish line. So there's some of those that you just, you know, you look at and you go, well, I wish we could have made that happen, but we're still putting ourselves in a position where good things can happen.
That's great. All right. So our next question is, if you could have a magic wand, what is something you would change or create that would prove too difficult to do through normal channels or processes that you think would be great for Stillwater? If you could just...
Oh, wow. That's good. I think it's a tough one to pick. There's a lot of things, I think. I'll go with two of them. I mean, one is what we were talking about earlier with funding, right? I think that the difficult work of figuring out how to better fund cities throughout our state, it's almost an impossible problem to solve because there's just way too much heavy lifting that's going to have to happen. I participated in an interim study at the legislature, the Senate, just a couple weeks ago, and there's just that's going to be a tough problem to solve. A magic wand would be very, very useful when it comes to, and again, it's not a matter of we need more tax money or trying to like raise, you know, higher taxes. It's just a matter of how do we better use and distribute the different revenue sources we have, and that a magic wand would be really helpful there. I think the other thing I would say is, how do I put this? How do I put this on the record? I guess is the, we have a lot of property in Stillwater that's underutilized. There's a lot of property in this community that, just to be totally honest, is either owned by folks who don't live in this community, who may have their family owned it 50 years and they just continue to sit on it and they don't really,
right.
Or they use it for some. There's a lot of I will say substandard rental property in this community, especially close to campus, that continues to make revenue for the people who own it, but is one, substandard housing, and two, not the highest and best use of the property itself.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to just help certain folks understand how, it would be better for them probably and for the rest of the community if we could figure out how to flip some of this property into better use for our community, to either take it from it's sitting vacant or, it's a substandard rental house or apartment or whatever, and say, man, there are people who are willing and able and ready to turn that into something that will be a better economic driver for our community, be a better economic driver for whoever owns the property, and overall improve the community. And it's tough to convince people that they need to maybe move on or do something else, or willing to invest a little bit of short-term capital for long-term gain. But yeah, that's a magic wand would help there.
That would be nice. I feel like I've had this conversation a few times, kind of often on the podcast, but people talking about how a lot of vacant properties in Stillwater are just basically for rent or just listed so high.
Yeah.
So that pretty much the only group that might come in to utilize it is a chain.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for us to grow local businesses, local entrepreneurs to find opportunities because, everything's listed just unbelievably out of their price range.
Stillwater is on an island to some extent, right? I mean, if you were talking about a suburb of Oklahoma City or Tulsa, where a business owner could say, you want that much money for that storefront? Well, I'll just go 2 miles or 4 miles or 6 miles over here, and I'll go to another little business district and I'll get a spot there cheaper. We don't have that level of competition, in a lot of ways, right? If you want to have a storefront in Stillwater, you don't have the money options.
There are like a few places.
Right. Yeah. And it's economics, right? I would never tell a business owner or a property owner to say, you shouldn't charge that much money, or you shouldn't try to make the best economic deal for you.
Yeah.
That's their job, or that's why they own property. But I don't understand the idea that I'm willing to let it sit vacant and make zero money
for
out of it
years,
rather than
years.
saying, I could just drop my price a little bit and get somebody in there and do better, right?
Yeah.
I do,
and then raise it over time.
And then yes, I mean, I think it's the catch-22 of what we see downtown right now. With there's some new development, but honestly, what you're seeing is some redevelopment of totally vacant sort of structures, or stuff that's got to be totally rehabilitated. When there's stuff that's ready to go and is turnkey ready, but it's sitting vacant because the prices are too high. But the prices are high because they're looking and saying, hey, there's all this new stuff down here. There's people down here. There's business. There's activity. And so, my rent should go up. And it's a catch-22, right? I mean, that's what we want. I mean, we want property values to go up. We want rents to go up. We want it to be more economically beneficial for everybody involved. But if you do that too quick and not in line with the market, then they just sit there vacant. And that is a difficult thing to see. Like just,
when you don't
less
have
than
enough
the economic
competition.
use.
When you don't have enough competition, you don't have a market to compare it to.
Exactly.
It's 10 to 20 different business locations may be available or something like that, prime locations.
And the same goes to housing and
Stillwater,
right? I mean, when you go look at my wife sent me a listing for a house, not even in the city, outside the city, that, the pricing on it was just, she's like, I can't believe they're charging this much for a house. I mean, it's not that big of a house. It's the kind of thing that you would consider would be a starter home, would be, my first house in St. Louis. When I got out of law school and we lived up there, I bought a old small house in an old neighborhood, and it was affordable for somebody who literally didn't even have a job yet, and my wife was teaching school, and you can't do that in Stillwater. I mean, if you're coming out right out of school and you've got a couple of entry level jobs, there's almost nothing you can afford, and it's because the rental market, the short term rental market, makes those properties valuable for investors. And I mean, I get it. I don't have anything bad to say about people who say, hey, I'm willing to pay $250,000 for that house because I know I can rent it for $1,200, $1,500 a month, or I can get $900 a weekend for it on the short-term market. It's economics, and it's free market economics, and that's the world we live in. And I get it, but at the same time, we've got to provide more stock of all of this stuff so that we've got some competition where people can say, hey, yeah, that's fine. Charge a lot of money for that one, but this one needs to be available for people to afford.
Yeah. When my wife and I were buying in spring of 22, there were like 20 houses on the market in our price range, and most of them were severely overpriced. We'll call them fixer-uppers to be polite. They were a little bit beyond a fixer-upper.
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
We lucked out. My wife was like, yeah, I wish we could, find a house like that one I rented back when I was in college. And I was like, at this point, let's just get in touch with your landlord and just ask if she'll just sell it straight to us. And it worked out. We were under contract in like 2 days.
That's great.
Yeah, it worked out. But it was, and we worked with a real estate agent, and we actually work for a real estate broker here in town doing their marketing. And so, we see like literally every listing that comes through their office, and it's crazy just the difference in the last 5 years.
And I mean, honestly, we've got hundreds of houses under construction, recently constructed, soon to be constructed in Stillwater, and it almost doesn't seem to make a difference. I mean, the capacity I think we have for new homes to be built before we actually start to see it affect basically we're so undersupplied. I think we have to supply 1,000 or more new homes to get that to balance out a little bit, where there's more supply and the prices have to start to come down. It's a catch-22, right? Because you want to live in a town that has good property values. You want to live in a town that is in demand, where people want to be. I mean, if we were sitting there having this conversation of how do we get rid of some of this housing, right? We've got too much stuff and it's depressing rents, and people are struggling to be able to sell a house when they need to, and that's another problem, right? I mean, certainly don't want to be on that side of it, but we are not anywhere near the equilibrium right now, and we got to find that equilibrium.
Yeah. So let's take it back to the beginning.
All right.
You grew up in Stillwater?
I did.
What was it like?
Gosh, it was great. I loved being a kid in Stillwater up until 16, right? then you're like, okay, I got to go somewhere else. No, I moved here I was 2. My parents were both in the Army right out of high school. They met and got married in the Army when they were both stationed in Germany. They came back to Oklahoma. My dad came back to Oklahoma. My mom's from New England, but he was a diesel mechanic in Tulsa for a couple of years after the Army, and then decided, I got free education with the GI Bill, and decided to come to Stillwater and get an engineering degree. So my brother and I were 2 and 4-ish, lived on campus, married student housing, what they now call, I guess, graduate family housing or something else. But that building's still there over there on off of McElroy in north side of campus, and then lived just off of 12th Street down on Stanley after they got out of school. And spent my whole childhood here. Graduated from Stillwater High, and then went to OSU right after high school. So it wasn't until 2001 when I graduated from college that we moved away and spent 10 years in St. Louis.
Cool. So what brought you back?
A little bit of family, right? We had 4 kids in St. Louis. We have 4 kids. They were all born up there. And my wife's parents were still here in town. My parents had moved to Little Rock at that point, but we're still very connected and hanging around in Stillwater. And wanted to be closer to them. Wanted to kind of be back here in more of a position to be able to care for our parents as they got older. We didn't really want to be really totally deeply rooted in St. Louis. 10 or 15 years later if our parents needed assistance and then not be able to be here for them. The other thing is our oldest went to kindergarten in St. Louis. We lived in the suburbs at that point, and really good suburban school district in St. Louis. Nice facilities, good schools, great kindergarten teacher. Really liked her. But I think the thing that kind of caught my attention as we were, with a kid in school was this kindergarten teacher is really great, and I will never run into her in the shop in the grocery store, right? She could have lived. I mean, there are 3 or 4 million people or whatever, however many in the St. Louis area, right? And she was teaching in one suburban school. She could have lived in a totally different suburb. She could have lived an hour away. She could have lived in Illinois. I mean, and nothing against her at all. I mean, she was great, but I just grew up here, and my wife grew up here, and we were sort of used to that idea that, well, your parents knew your teachers, right? I mean, they saw them at church, or they saw them at the grocery store, or they. And as a kid, it's like, that 16, 17-year-old time frame where you start to go, God, this really sucks. Like there's no, you can't get away from, there's, and you start to feel like it's a really small town when you're kind of starting to become your own person. But man, as a parent, it's really nice to sort of feel like you have that kind of connection with the people who are teaching your kids, and people who you're going to church with, and that kind of stuff, that you'll see them and interact with them on a community basis. And so that was part of it too. I mean, we knew Stillwater had great schools. We had both gone to school here. We were very high on what Stillwater offered from a school perspective, and just that more community piece of it really played into it.
That's great. So what did you do in St. Louis?
So I went to graduate school in St. Louis. Rochelle and I both graduated from OSU. She went to grad school at St. Louis University to be a speech pathologist. She has a speech pathology degree. And then I went to law school at Washington University in St. Louis. And then got out of law school. Kind of had planned to come back right after law school. I actually had summer internships here in Oklahoma City and Tulsa after my second year. But we really loved St. Louis. We kind of connected, the 3 years that we were there during school, and had a good church home there, and really made some really good friends. And the opportunities that I saw in Oklahoma weren't that great anyway. And so we kind of just decided, let's figure out if we can just stay here. So I ended up getting a job in St. Louis after graduation, and practiced law with kind of a big commercial law firm for 4.5 years or so after law school. Didn't really like that. It was not a job that really appealed to me a lot. Had some other, thoughts and desires about what might be in my future. And so I ended up quitting my job at the law firm and going back to school at Covenant Theological Seminary in St. Louis. So I spent 3 years really part-time as a seminary student. Initially thinking maybe a full-time church job, and then really pretty quickly kind of got into the world of dispute resolution, conflict conciliation. There were some sort of biblically based conciliation programs. Some folks that I met up there, started working part-time for one of them. I kind of looked at that as a potential sort of vocational change. Figured out pretty quick that people in conflict, whether they're churches or people who want to use a biblical approach rather than a secular legal approach, doesn't really change a whole lot about my job. Not necessarily a better situation just because they want to approach it from a different standard. Yeah. I really enjoyed what I did. I think there's a lot of positives there, and there's a lot of people who do that well. But really, what I think I figured out was that the angst, or the sort of wasn't sure I liked what I was doing, wasn't sure what I wanted to do next, and really most of that centered around the fact that I wanted to come back home. I think I was ready to come back to Stillwater, or at least to somewhere in Oklahoma, and I just didn't feel that St. Louis was ever really going to be a long-term home. Mm-hmm. And so I think that played into a lot of my, I don't know what I want to do with my life kind of stuff. And realized, really seminary helped me, realize that what I did for a living on a day-to-day basis was not the sort of be-all, end-all of me as a person. Mm-hmm. And kind of helped me recenter a little bit of where my focus was. And really that, like I said, that ambiguity for me was solved by saying, let's move back to Stillwater. I think I'll be happier there. And that has definitely proven to be the case. So, yeah.
Very nice. Great. So what do you do now?
So we're sitting here today at Interworks, which is a technology consulting firm here in Stillwater, based in Stillwater. I am the general counsel here, so my job is to be their lawyer. I really like being a lawyer for one client. It's a better pace for me, or better. I like my client. I trust them. I believe in what they do, and it's really it's good for me to be able to help advise a client that I am excited about helping. So yeah, we have clients all over the world. We have offices all over the world, Europe and Australia, as well as all over the U.S. And so we work with a lot of big technology, or we work with a lot of big corporate clients all over the place. And I negotiate contracts and deal with legal issues at our company.
Very nice. All right. Any final thoughts about Stillwater? What do you love about Stillwater?
I am really, I'm thankful every day that we came back, because I've loved raising my kids here. We came back, we have 4 kids under 6. At this point, my youngest is 14. I've got 3 kids in high school, one that's graduated and is in college. And I think we made absolutely the right choice to come back here and raise our kids and be part of this community. And I think, part of what drives me to do what I do on the municipal side is the fact that I do believe this place is a great place for people to live and to raise a family, to have a career, to, just be part of a community. It's got a great mix of things, of amenities you can't find at towns this size, with what we have through the university, with the McKnight Center, with what we're building on Block 34, with, just things that are outside of what you would maybe expect from a town this size, but also has the community that you would expect from, a smaller city. And so I think it's the best of both worlds. And I'm really happy and proud to be a part of making that helping continue, Stillwater's sort of potential and growth there. And just happy to be here.
Awesome. You going for a 3rd term?
Yeah, probably.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Devin.
Thanks for tuning in to Still Connect. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Will. Be sure to follow the podcast on social media for highlights, updates, and more. And be sure to share the podcast with all of your Stillwater friends as well, so that we can grow the podcast and our community. If you love hearing Stillwater stories come to life, I would really appreciate your support on Patreon. For a subscription starting at as little as $5 a month, you can help grow the podcast, plus get early access to episodes, behind-the-scenes looks, and a shout-out on the show. Higher tiers let you submit questions for upcoming guests, receive podcast merch, and even appear on an episode yourself. Every bit of support helps grow this community and helps keep local stories front and center. Together, we can keep Stillwater connected, one conversation at a time. Speaking of which, I would like to thank our current business subscribers, Renovate Stillwater, Film in Oklahoma, and our Stillwater patron, Darren Huddleston. And remember, we all need community. So even when life gets busy, make sure you still connect.